All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Martin Falls. Very pleased to have with us the Chief of Police of Thibodeau, Chief Brian Zarang. Chief, good to see you again.
Thank you for having me, Martin.
Good. You know, during the holidays, well, I guess in general, we talk about safety. We have a lot of people walking to their cars now to go home. And some here at HTV do the same thing. But in general, safety. How important is it nowadays to know where you are and what you have to do to get home
Well,
safe?
it's always been now more than ever. We live in a different era, should we say? And I always tell people, we get too complacent. Sometimes we forget our surroundings because we're so used to going back and forth, like you said, especially at work. You're going in and out, or driving to and from work. Kind of change up your routine every now and then. Not saying to scare anybody, but just change up your routine. That way, if somebody is watching or monitoring you, you kind of change things to where it kind of throws them off. Because if you're doing everything the same every day, driving the same route to work, back and forth, and it's easy for them to pick up on what you're doing. Same thing when you're shopping. Watch where you park at. Watch your surroundings. If it looks suspicious or something feels suspicious, don't hesitate to call the police. We much rather go out for nothing than to wait and go out for something. And we got extra patrols, during the holidays and all the time, but more during the holidays where you're going to see more patrolling around the stores and whatnot and inside the stores. But I just tell people, just don't get complacent. Know your surroundings. Lock up your valuables. Don't leave them in plain view because that's what they're looking for, where they can just pass and, break a window or something and take your valuables out your car.
We always talk about the education of the people who are getting robbed or are getting assaulted. We never bring up the fact that some of these criminals out there are pretty smart too.
Oh, absolutely.
They look for patterns.
They do. They look for patterns. They watch, they listen. And now you can go on TikTok, you can go on YouTube, pretty much find out anything you want to find out. And it's a shame to say, but they got some stuff that criminals are watching too. How to break in, how to do this, how to set that up. So, you want to be mindful of that and know what's going on around you at all times.
How has YouTube and TikTok changed the way you, as a leader in the law enforcement community, do things? Because you're right. Before, when we were growing up, you couldn't go on YouTube and learn how to make a pipe bomb.
No.
You couldn't learn how to do a lot of things. You couldn't learn how to make keys to get into a building.
Right.
Everything's at the fingertips.
Yes. And that's what people need to understand. Back in the day, we didn't have all of that. It's become a big thing in today's society. So we have to monitor and stay on top of it to know what's going on with what's being put out there to the public, especially our young adults, because that's the ones that are vulnerable. That's the ones that they spend more time on the computers than really what we do. We do some, with work and everything, but a lot of times that's where they spend most of their time is on the computers. And if you give them the opportunity, you notice it already too, you have to watch what you put in. Because if you put a name in, no telling what site it's going to bring you to, So that's another thing I tell people: beware of what you put on the computer to bring it up. Because once you bring it up, you never know what site it's going to lead you to.
Does it baffle you? You were with the state police forever, and I remember when you were the public information officer and coming to HTV. In the old brick building on the side, we used to do the reports.
Right.
Times have changed so much for both me and you when it comes to these type of things, but with your training from the state police that you now implement, I'm sure nothing ever leaves somebody. So all the training you got, you bring with you to the Thibodeau Police Department. Then you start hiring young officers to come in. Are they just head and shoulders above, savvy-wise, than when we all started?
Oh, they are. They are. And again, that's a way of life for them. It's a different generation. But even going back, even the training has changed. You see that too from the time, the stuff that we learned back in the day. Things have changed. Again, you have to keep up with the times because the times are changing. Technology is changing. Weaponry has changed some. So you got different things on the market nowadays. So that's why I believe in training. You have to train because it's constantly changing also. Laws are changing. So we have to keep up with everything from what it was in the past.
And also, I guess we could talk about Amazon and other places that you could order things right at your fingertips.
And I always tell people, be mindful of that. When you're going onto these lines, make sure it's the right site that you're going onto, because there's other duplicate sites, I should say, that look close to Amazon or sort. And if you don't pay close enough attention, it could be a scam. So you want to really pay close attention to what you're doing and monitor your tracking, monitor, your credit cards, because a lot of people are using on credit cards and stuff. So monitor that stuff closely. If you're using your debit card, monitor that stuff real close just to make sure that you catch it before it gets too far.
And the thing is, you're the chief, but you're still and will always be a police officer. So
Right.
when you're going to a place, I know you're probably scanning the crowd.
It's a habit.
It's in your
It's a
blood.
habit.
But a kid
Don't sit
today
with your
on
back to the door.
Amazon
Yep.
can order a gun that's plastic but looks real as could be.
Yep. And the sad part is some of the toy guns. At one time we got toy guns. You could tell it was a toy.
Right.
Because, it had the orange colors and different things where you could tell that was not a real gun. Nowadays, you have toy guns that look just like the real guns.
I alluded to it just in my open, cars, where you park your cars, whether you leave them open or not. Thieves are always looking, aren't they?
Absolutely, especially unlocked doors. And that's what we try to instill is lock your cars, take your valuables out, especially guns. Because some of the burglaries that we had, guns were left in vehicles, which I don't know why anybody want to leave it in there. I want it on me. I don't want it in my car, or my truck.
Won't do you no good in the car.
Right. But we've seen valuables. We've seen where they rummaged through. One time was a little funny in a sense. Wasn't funny for the victim, but that person that left the keys in the vehicle. Well, whoever had broke into it was nice enough to leave the keys and move them out the ignition, put them inside the center console.
Very
So that was-
thoughtful.
yeah. But I mean, those are the kind of things that you don't want. You want to make sure your stuff is picked up. And then you got the recent thing we've been having is the Kia and the Hondas because of ignition. And there's been a recall on it. Well, it didn't take long for the criminals to pick up that they can use a USB to break. Once they break the ignition, they can use the USB to start the cars up. So it didn't take them long. And if you go on these websites I was telling you
Right.
about, they show you exactly how
But
to
aren't
do
the
it.
criminals normally ahead of the people that aren't looking to do this?
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're looking for a way.
Absolutely. And a lot of times they monitor those things, and they know that people are. Some people do a real good job of making sure that stuff is locked, And we always say, concealment is what criminals look for. So lit areas really help around your houses. Camera systems help. I mean, we always telling people, when people call and ask advice about a camera system, we're not going to tell you which one to buy because they got great camera systems out there. Buy what you can afford, buy something that you can use and understand how to use. But the rings are a big thing right now. But I tell people, the more protection you got for you, the better off you are. And it's not that you want to live like a hermit in your house, but you want to feel protected and know your house is protected even if you're not there. And like we talked about, going back to packages getting delivered, make sure get your neighbor, somebody to watch when packages are being delivered at your house, that they're picked up and not left out, because if they stay too long, criminals will start scanning the streets, and next thing you know, packages start getting closer to that Christmas time. They're going to start buying stuff. Packages start disappearing off of people's porches and stuff.
And let me ask you brought up a good point during the break, which I never really thought about. But if you go buy yourself an 80-inch TV or a 60-inch TV and you leave the box by the street,
That tells the criminal exactly what you just bought, what's inside the house.
you just soon put it by the street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just soon put the TV by the street.
Yeah. And again, just when people are doing work on your house, make sure it's people that you can rely on, people that's got a good backing, got a licensing to do the job and stuff. Because again, you have scams out there too. And you got someone that's just looking to get into your house and see what you have. And next thing you know, later on, they'll come back and hit your house and steal.
You say that, and I half chuckle, but I'm serious. I hired a crew right after Ida, and I didn't check them out well enough. They cut one of my air conditioning units off the house. They stole a bunch of lumber. They cut all the speakers and all out my truck. And this is in a matter of 12 hours. Took 2 batteries from the neighbor's house. And you think people are good sometimes, but if you don't check them out, they had a previous record. I could have found that out real easy. I was too trusting.
Yep. And the thing about it, my nephew had dad had a big trailer that was, he had brought up to Arkansas, and he had a chain and everything. Axle was chained, tongue was chained, everything was locked. And he went to the base to go to work, come back, trailer's gone. And it don't take them long because, again, those that are doing it as a career, I call it, that's all they do. They know how to get in
have
there
the
real
tools.
quick. They got the tools. They can make it real quick and get out of there.
Probably got chain cutters and everything.
Well, absolutely everything they need at their
Boom,
fingertips.
boom, 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 gone.
And a lot of them's got locks to get in the house. They don't have to, some of them don't have to prior to get in. You know, they'll, just like a locksmith, they'll buy the tools they need, learn how to use it and get into your house and stuff.
One thing I purchased, I'll let all the criminals know, GPS on my trailers and everything.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. So if it's stolen, we'll
Yep.
just track it to
And
the
that's
nearest
good.
intersection.
And a lot of the new vehicles that are coming out on the market today have tracking devices where you can track, you know, we've had that help us with recovering some of these stolen vehicles because they have tracking devices and stuff on.
And really, there are cheap enough things you could put on TVs, on items where no one would ever know they're there. And if somebody steals it, you can track it. It'll bling you to the, or bing you, whatever they call
Right.
it.
And that's what amazes me going back to Facebook, how much information people put. You know, I know they're trying to do things to kind of let people know what the trips they've taken and where they're going and stuff like that. But sometimes we put a little bit too much information where the criminals can use that to their advantage too. And I always tell people, you never know who's on the other side that you're talking to. Watch for some of these scams.
Especially when they're filming in their house, like you said, and they're showing themselves mixing a
Absolutely.
cake.
Yep.
And right behind them is the big 60-inch TV.
Yep.
You just told the criminal.
Or the gun cabinet and everything else.
yeah.
You know,
I got
watch what you do. Watch what you put on Facebook.
God, we've seen so many over the years that women especially can use to protect themselves when they go into their vehicles, mace, stun guns, whatever. In your opinion, what's some of the better things they could use?
If you can't afford it, you don't want to use. I always tell them if you're going to use something, make sure it's something that you're going to use. Don't buy something that you're scared of and not sure of.
Because they'll use it.
Absolutely. If it gets in the wrong hands, they can use it against you. I always tell them car keys are one of the best. Take your car key, put it between, your fingers,
Right.
and make it as a stabbing device, and you can use that, to jab, stab, whatever you got to do. I mean, if it's to that point, you got to do what you got to do to defend yourself. But keys are great.
Criminals hate sound too, so if you have a sound
They do
device,
because they know it's going to alert other people.
Right.
So anything sound wise, whether it be a whistle or some type of device that you can make noise with loud enough that it draws attention, yeah, they'll run. They don't like those either.
Let's talk about guns, because we hear so much about guns, and there's a group out there that's always saying guns are unsafe. They're unsafe if somebody's not taught how to use a gun.
Absolutely. And I always tell them, secure your weapons, make sure they're locked where children can't get a hold of them. Because too often we see where they think they picked up, but the next thing they're rummaging through closets or what have you, or some safe or something, and it's where they can get to it, then they want to start playing. And again, curiosity kills the cat, as we say, so you want to make sure that stuff is secure. But when they get to the age that they understand, explain to them how dangerous it is. And if you want to take them out somewhere and give them the proper training, that's the best thing to do. Then they realize, what that weapon can do. As I tell them, it's just a weapon is just like an automobile. When the automobile is out of control, it can do a lot of damage. Once that bullet leaves that gun, it can do a lot of damage, and you can't pull
I
it
can
back.
remember, I guess I was about 9 or 10 when I begged Daddy for a pellet gun. He said, I'm not giving you a pellet gun until you memorize these 10 rules about gun. Well, I went in my room, started memorizing. When I had it down, then he allowed me to get it. But what's the average age you find now when kids start, especially young boys, start really getting interested in guns?
Oh, some of it is nowadays you see them hunting as young as 5 or 6 years old. They out, hunting stuff. So at a young age is the best time to do it. And I always tell people, make sure you get the proper training. Look, I've seen adults that don't know how to handle a weapon, and not that they reckless with it. They just bought something that they're not familiar with, and they're trying to handle it, and they don't know how to handle it. Next thing you know, it can jam on them.
And then the kids are watching them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the biggest thing is make them understand. You don't point anything, whether the weapon's loaded or not. You never pointed anything. Because that's where a lot of them they think it's empty. Next thing you know, there was a round left in. Somebody gets shot because somebody was just looking at it.
We hear so much about rounds being left in guns. I mean, what am I missing? How can they miss that?
Exactly. And I mean, if you're going to leave it loaded, make sure it's locked in a locked box that nobody can get a hold of it. Because again, in some cases, like the old saying is, an empty gun won't do you any good. But you're right. But if it's picked up properly, but if it's not picked up properly, where a child can get a hold of it, it's going to be devastating.
Some small pistols don't have a safety.
Right. And that's why I always tell people, make sure it's locked up. Make sure, again, you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's dangerous, even for an adult, not only a child, but an adult could do a lot of damage too by fooling with something they're not familiar with and they got a child or something. And we've seen that happen too, where they're cleaning or doing something with a gun and accidental discharge and winds up hurting someone.
In closing, I've seen people do this on Facebook a lot. We'll be going to New Orleans to my mother's house for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. We're bringing everybody. You've just told the thief,
Yep.
my house is going to be empty.
Yep.
Spend all the time you need to go clean it up.
Yeah, because somewhere along the line you left information about your house, either a picture of it or you mentioned address or somewhere along the line they know where your house is located. That's why I tell people, don't put that much information out there.
Just soon leave them an apple pie while you're at it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Y'all got to scratch your head sometimes that I'm sure when we used to do the beat and we would film the criminal doing the thing, we'd be in the car, the criminal would just turn to the camera and start telling us how they did the crime.
Yep.
Because they want to brag
Yep.
on how smart they were.
Yep.
Bet y'all hear that a lot.
Oh, you hear that a lot and you see it a lot. You kind of wonder, and especially when they're hitting the same places over and over. Well, that's telling us one thing. The criminal has been paying attention, that people are not heeding to the warning that we're putting out there, and they're going back and hit the same places again. But they're brave. I mean, and nowadays the scary part, when you and I talked about that, if you feel or you see somebody in the neighborhood late at night with a hoodie or looking suspicious, contact us, because nowadays they're carrying weapons. Back in the day, you didn't have too much of that. They might have had a tool that they were using, to commit the crime. But nowadays they're carrying weapons with them, and a lot of times.
And a lot of times they're getting the weapons out of the cars that were left unlocked.
Absolutely, and carrying them on them. And you're getting that group from New Orleans that's starting to infiltrate the area. I mean, that's why I believe in proactive, as much as we can be proactive, not reactive, be proactive. And know your intel, know what's going on in the street, because it don't take long for the criminals to start talking with each other, and they know where the areas are. And that's why I tell people, make sure your neighborhood looks good. These blighted homes, let's tear them down, because all that does is bring the criminal element in, because they figure, if they don't care about that community, then we're gonna come in and set up house here, So make sure you keep your neighborhood looking good. Look out for each other. If your neighbors are going, look out, for each other. If somebody's taking a trip, like you said, somebody's going to New Orleans for the holidays, make sure neighbors looking out, for your interest with your house and stuff. Let us know.
Chief, we appreciate all the information. Thank you. All right, there you have it. Chief Brian Zarang giving us great and valuable information. We'll take a break. A lot more here on Bayou Time. Don't go away.